Well, as you know, a person by the name of Leigh Alexander wrote an article on Gamer Sutra called Gamers Don't Have to Be Your Audience. And it was stupid. It was ridiculous. It was, oh god. Oh god. And so I wrote a piece about it, but now I'm going to do a video about it. Because now I've written it, I sort of want to add more to it, but I figure, screw it, my writing's awful, and my spelling's awful as well, so I'm going to do it in video format. So she begins, for those of you who haven't read the article. I often say I'm a video games culture writer, but lately I don't even know exactly what that means. Games culture, as we know, is kind of embarrassing. It's not even culture. It's buying things, spanking over memes, and in-jokes repeatedly. It's getting mad on the internet. So, right off the bat, you fully admit you don't like games culture. But sorry, you're probably the one in about a billion, if not more, that, you know, doesn't like the culture. There are, again, billions upon billions that love this culture, that are, again, part of different aspects of the gaming culture and the community, because what you will see throughout this article is that she doesn't seem to understand how broad and diverse the gaming culture actually is. Hence why we've now got the hashtag of #NotMyShield. And of course, the obvious questions comes up, if you are a video game culture, why are you writing about something that you evidently don't like? And as we'll come to the end of this article, you will see, why is she even writing about it? She doesn't like it. Now someone's going to say, oh, but you can still like something you don't hate. Yes, you can, but then why are you not also talking about the good points that you like about the culture? Because in the article, she says nothing about the part she likes. In fact, this is entirely dumping on any male part of the gamer culture, because she doesn't even mention females once. Anyway, she continues. It's young men queuing with plush mushroom hats and backpacks and jutting promo poster rolls, queuing passionately for hours at events around the world to see the things that marketeers want them to see, to find out whether or not they should buy the things or not. You don't know how to dress. They don't know, this is the best thing that gets me, they don't know how to dress or behave. Television cameras pan across these listless queues and often catch expressions of people who don't quite know why they are there themselves, are standing there. So right off the bat, again, going for the low-hanging fruit. She's going for the stereotype of the gamer. Again, needless to say, when you go back and you can go find those videos of when they're panning through those queues, I guarantee you will see women in those queues as well. You know, just let's ignore them, apparently, according to Leigh Alexander. So, and we've done so much to throw off this stereotype over the years, and yet we've got people like this dragging the stereotype back into use. Why? Because they've got to make us look bad. And again, don't know how to dress or behave. Are you really honestly saying that gamers don't know how to react in like social situations? Sorry, but gamers come from all sorts of walks in life. I mean, I know I'm in a t-shirt and jeans at the moment, but yesterday I was at a networking meeting. I was in a suit. Just that's how you dress when you go to a professional networking event. And I talk to people professionally in a different manner than I would talk to, people now on the internet. It's what we call professional etiquette. But anyway. She continues again. Games culture is a petri dish of people who know so little about how human social interaction and professional life works that they concoct online wars about social justice. or games journalism ethics straight-faced and cause genuine human consequences because of video games. So according to you, in your own words, Leah, they know so little about how social human interaction works. Again, this is coming from a gamer who owns his own business, who, as I just said, I regularly have to dress up in professional stances, have to, network with people. We call it a professional life. I'm not like that 100% of the time, because that would be ridiculous and silly to be like that 100% of the time. I have downtime. Right now I have downtime, hence why I'm doing this video now. But the point of this is to get people angry, to get riled up, because she wants a reaction, particularly from the male people, hence why she's excluding all mention of any female gamers, because, all female gamers agree with her 100%, and trust me, they don't. And this war you speak of, we didn't start it. It was people like you and Anita Sarkeesian and the games journalists who decided that you were going to start having clickbait articles and the likes to start and rile people up, because when people get ad, they comment and they respond and they come to the article and they share it more, saying, oh, look at this, what this guy's posted, you won't believe it. Despite what you claim, you have no ethics. You're journalists when you want to be journalists, and when it comes under criticism, you suddenly turn into bloggers again. You can't win. And quite frankly, the whole Gamergate and Not Your Shield has sprung up because we're fed up of being told what bad people we are. Anyway, she continues. Lately, I often find myself wondering what I'm even doing here, and I know I'm not alone. Basically, what she is saying, as you can tell so far, is, I don't like the culture, and I'm going to change it to suit me. And I have to say, Leigh Renmay, that is very Roman of you. How very Roman. And if you want to know what I mean, just go look what happened to the cultures that existed in Europe before pre-Roman conquest, and then look what happened after. How these cultures literally got wiped out. In fact, if you ask a scholar, countries only very recently have managed to resurface and have different cultures. Again, that's how much damage the Romans did, and now you want to come along and basically say, I don't like this culture, so I'm going to fit it so it suits me. Hang everyone else. Anyway, I should continue. All of us should be better than this. You should be deeply questioning your life choices, and if this is are the prominent public face your business presents to the rest of the world. Well, again, you've done no proper research into this article, into what's going on, have you, at all? About why gamers are annoyed. And again, the hashtag Not Your Shield. You're, again, annoyed that the culture doesn't suit you, and now you're going to try and force it to suit the way you like. No, he continues again. This is what the rest of the world knows about your industry. This and headlines about billion-dollar war simulators and those junkies with touchscreen candies. That's it. You should absolutely be better than this. Unfortunately, that is when games do not make the news very often. It does in small bits. It tends to be about, the latest releases, or this game sold this amount, or, as very often sometimes happens on the BBC Tech site, there is often a story about what's been going on in EVE. But again, it doesn't help the gaming community when people like you are posting blogs about how bad we are, again, you're complaining about, oh, the public face of our consumers. Well, sorry, you know nothing about the gaming audience at all if that is seriously what you think. And remember, this is on Gamer Sutra, and Gamer Sutra, you know, is meant to be like the business side almost of the games magazine. It's meant to be like a professional website solely for games creators. Anyway, she continues. You don't want to be decisive. Who's going to divide except for people who are only with an infertilized cultural desert of shitty behaviour and people who aren't? What is there to debate? There's lots of stuff to debate. The problem is people like you don't want the debate to happen. Again, you've only got it recently surfacing that, you know, you've got Anita cried wolf about calling the police, which now calls into question, are those death threats actually real? And was it just purposely manufactured? Is any journalist going to cover that? No. But again, as you've just said there, you do not like, as far as you're concerned, the cultural gaming desert is just a desert. It's blank and barren as you're concerned. You don't want to wade through that desert. So you're going to change the culture to suit you and not everyone else as well. But you know, that's how you kill diversity. Anyway, she continues again. Right, let's say it's a vocal minority. That it's not representative of most people. Most people, from indies to industry leaders, are mortified, furious and disheartened at the direction industry conversation has taken in the past few weeks. It's not like there are reputable outlets publishing rational articles in favour of Troll's side. Don't give press to the harassers. Don't blame an entire industry for a few bad apples. And I agree with you. The people who are doing this and that are giving out harassment are a few select individuals and are not representative of the mass games public. But guess what? You've just said there that, you know, indies to industrial peoples are mortified and furious. Well, guess what? They are out there. There are people that are annoyed at the games journalists that have supported Not My Gamer, that have come out and spoken and have publicly stated they are scared about speaking out because they do not want to be seen and portrayed by the gaming media, which, you know, you represent apparently, portrays them as misogynist because it's bad press to them, or they might end up losing their jobs. You know, you talk about real world consequences. Well, what about people losing real world consequences because they stood up for Gamergate and they spoke out against people like you? I don't know of anyone that's lost their job yet, but that would be interesting to find out. But anyway, remember, as I've said before, this is a war that people like you started, not us. And when you start a war, you cannot expect the enemy not to shoot back. And when they shoot back, you can't go, oh no, look at what they're doing to us, because you started it, you threw the first stone. Don't expect people to throw stones back if you're not willing to, you know, don't be willing, you know, just don't throw stones in the first place. Yes, and she continues with, yes, discriminating liability is clearly no help. Games websites with huge community hubs whose fans are often associated with blunt Twitter hate mobs sort of shrug as they say things like, we delete the really bad stuff, what else can we do? And those people don't represent our community, but actually those people do represent your community. That's what your community is known for, whether you like it or not. Well, what else do you expect them to do except moderate? And on most gaming forums, there is, there is rules and regulations. But what's the funny is, what was the last part? Was she just saying, don't blame an entire industry for a few bad apples? So why is it not the same for the online communities? Oh, that's right, because you don't like that community, because they speak out against you. Sad day for you. Basically, that's what freedom of speech is, that's what a debate is, and if you're willing to debate these people, you might see less of these things. We might actually get more rational conversation, but you're not willing to engage in this debate. Oh, and this is fun, this one. When you decline to curate or create a culture in your spaces, you're responsible for what it spawns in the vacuum. That's what's been happening to games. Any culture is about creativity, and you cannot tell people what to and what not to create. At this point, you are advocating for pre-approved censorship. I'm sorry, but you are. You're basically saying if it's not this certain shade of grey, then it doesn't have the right to exist. And I'm sorry, in a culture or in any environment, if you are saying that, then the culture will slowly die out. And yet, all these articles about the death of gamers, if these people had their way, that is what would happen. The culture would become grey and bland and just die out. Anyway, she continues. That's not super surprising, actually. While video games themselves were discovered by strange, bright, outcast pioneers, they thought arcades would make pub games more fun, or that MUDs would make for amazing cross-cultural meeting spaces. The commercial arm of the forum sprung up from marketing high-end tech products to early adopters, young lightweight dudes with disposable incomes who like to get stuff. What about young white females with disposable income who also like to get stuff? And as you can see, this is entirely aimed at denigrating a male audience. Again, as I'll go into later, she doesn't understand demographics at all. I basically was like, well, thanks for pointing out the obvious, but you know nothing about marketing. These places have changed. And, the people who buy games now have changed. But it's still the vast majority of games, are bought for consoles and PC by males. I recommend Leigh Remini go talk to Rockstar Games, go to their marketing department and ask about demographics and what they market to. You might actually learn something if she actually did that. Anyway, she continues. Suddenly a generation of lonely basement kids had marketeers whispering in their ears that they were the most important commercial demographic of all time. Suddenly they started wearing shiny blouses and pink bikini babes onto everything they made, starting making games with the sole promise of high-octane masculinity to kids just to them. Okay, marketing has changed a lot since then, but a lot of things still apply. Again, you will hear when you talk to marketers, sex sells. That is an undisputable fact. Sex sells a heck of a lot. It does for males, it does when you're targeting females as well. But again, go talk to Rockstar, go talk to them about demographics. But the turn of the millennium, those were games' only main cultural signpost. Have money, have women, get gun, get bigger gun, be an outcast, celebrate that. Defeat anyone who threatens you. You don't need cultural references, you don't need anything but gaming, public conversation was led by a games press whose role was primarily to tell people what to buy, to score products competitively against one another, and gleefully fuel the team sports atmosphere around creators and companies. That's only one type of game you're talking about in the massive cultural gaming landscape, right? And again, this shows that she's not part of the community at all, because what do gamers always want? We're wanting more change, we're wanting different games, we're wanting newer games, we're wanting new ideas. You know, Black Flag Assassin's Creed was probably one of the best Assassin's Creeds in a while, thanks to the pirate aspects of the ship. Right? I've said time and time again, Sid Meier needs to recreate pirates, and they need to take that system of sailing, take the Sid Meier's original pirate games, cram them both together, put some new stuff in, recreate all the mini games and whatnot, and you will have an amazing game. Will they do it? We don't know. Why? Because they're companies. And companies at the end of the day like to go with brand awareness and, you know, all that usual good marketing stuff, which apparently Leigh doesn't seem to understand. And again, most gamers, that's what they want their press to be. They want the press to tell them, or, you know, not to literally tell them, they want, you know, press to go, is this a good game? Is it worth forking over my money to buy the game? At the end of the day, that's what we want. We don't want, you know, games journalists coming out, you know, like, you know, think of the Caroline Pettit thing, where she's literally said, oh yeah, I was going to give this game 10 out of 10, but because of the misogyny in it, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I'm sorry, that's not what we want from a gaming press. We want games to tell, you know, is it a fun game to play? Are there any bugs or things we should be aware of? Things like that. You know, you don't go to Witch magazine and start saying, well, this needs some more social justice in it because, you know, I need to know which product might be sexist. Anyway, she continues. It makes a strange sort of sense that video games of that time would become scapegoats for moral panic and atrocities committed by young white teen boys in hypercapital America. It's not that games themselves had anything to do with the tragedies, but they had an anxiety in common. And I'm from a cultural shape that was dark and loud on the outside, hollow on the inside. Are you not creating your own moral panic now? What is the difference between, you know, Anita Sarkeesian and Jack Thompson? Literally nothing. There is literally nothing at this point, given her last video. You're basically, as you clearly said, you're trying to instill a moral panic. What did these people who were doing moral panics, you know, originally doing? They were trying to influence the music industry, the comic book industry, the movie industry, any moral panic, you name it. They've always tried to co-opt the, you know, the popular thing at the moment to suit their agenda. You are no different from them. Yet in 2014, the industry has changed. We still think angry young men are the primary demographic for commercial video games, yet average software revenues from the commercial sphere have contradicted massively year on year, with only a few sterling brands enjoying predictable success. This is what we call the free market. And I'm sorry that you don't understand that. Anyway, she continues again. It's clear that most people who drove these revenues in the past have grown up, either out of games or into more fertile spaces, where small and diverse titles can flourish, where communities can quickly spring up around creativity, self-expression and mutual support rather than consumerism. These are the new audiences and new creators alike, where traditional gaming is slouching off culturally and economically like the carapace of a bug. And yet you've just been saying throughout this entire article how change is not happening. And yet I'll agree with you, change is happening. There are new games coming out, there are new, ideas being floated about. The old game companies are still there for one reason, they still make money. And as long as they make money, they ain't going anywhere. It's demographics. Anyway, she continues. Because again, and just to go back to the thing, and she's trying to make a moral panic. Why? Because if you have a moral panic, you can get more people on your side that never have never been into the like the games area, because they'll come in and go, oh my god, what if this affects people I know, or has an effect on me? This is what they try to do so that they can change stuff and force companies into changing stuff. Anyway, she continues. This is hard for people who've drank the Kool-Aid to admit. However, their identity depends on the aging cultural signposts of rapidly evolving, increasingly broad and complex medium. It is hard for them to hear they don't own anything anymore, and that they aren't the world's most specialist consumer demographic that they have to share. I'll tell you this now, we are not that selfish. We love new games. We love all sorts of stuff, but at the moment, bring out your cross, because you're going on a crusade. Listen to what the community always saying. They want new games, they want new titles, they want new IPs, they want new ideas. Why do you think the indie has been so successful? In fact, arguably at the moment, you can no longer call it the indie scene. It has become a new part of the game industry itself. And look at all the stuff on Steam Greenlight, how different games there are on Steam Greenlight. No big companies would make that because they don't think it would make money, and yet these small companies are proving them wrong time and time again. But again, that all comes down to marketing and demographics. And as Leigh has shown, she wants... The community is changing, as are the games industry itself, but not in the direction she wants. And I have to ask the question, what Kool-Aid have you been drinking? Because it certainly isn't the same one that, pretty much all the gaming community's been, drinking and, talking about how we want, different and diversity in our games. Anyway, she continues. We also have to scrutinise closely the baffling stubborn silence of many content creators amid these scandals. Or the fact that lots of stubborn, myopic internet comments happen on business and industry sites. It's hard for the old school developers who are being made redundant, both culturally and literally, in their unwillingness to address new audiences and reference points outside of blockbuster movies or comic books as their traditional domain fall into the sea around them. Of course it's hard, it's probably intensely painful for stuff for some young kids and some older men. And yet it's not falling into the sea at all. The games culture and industry has opened up massively. It is now a $1 billion industry that is growing year on year. It was the only industry during the last recession not to stop growing. And again, we come into the argument of a free marketplace. There are new ideas, there are new developers out there, there are floating new ideas, and guess what? Some of those ideas don't work all the time, and they fail, and they end up having to close up shop. It's the free market. You're not going to make a game about a sword-fighting duck when you've done your market research like you would do for any product you would be selling. and you discover that there is no market for a sword fighting duck, and in fact when you look at the market, people actually want sword fighting cats. So you make a game about sword fighting cats, and hence your game sells a lot more copies than it would with sword fighting ducks. That's marketing, kids. Again, you know, Mario and Link as a perfect example. Mario and Link will always exist so as long as there are people around to buy their games. Anyway, she continues. But it's unstoppable. A new generation of fans of creators is finally aiming to institute a healthy cultural vocabulary, a language of community that was missing in the days of gamer pride, and the special interest groups led by product guide approach to conversation with a single pursued demographic. And that demographic is gamer. It still is now, still was then. You know, we do not care about sex, we just care about as long as you play the games, and what, you know, as long as the games are fun, you know, and there are communities, there are different parts of the communities. You know, Christ, you know, look at World of Warcraft, how many different communities and guilds there are within World of Warcraft. You've got the fun guilds, the casual guilds, the hardcore guilds, the guilds that sort of float in between casual and hardcore, and you know, look at the amount of women you encounter playing World of Warcraft. You know, when I was playing Warhammer Online, there were 3 or 4, you know, females in our guild. They always commented on the fact that I played a woman as my avatar. They found it rather funny. Anyway. And again, where has all this community come from? It's come from people within the community. And you, again, as I've said right from the beginning, you don't like this community, so you've decided you're going to change it to suit you. But what you cannot seem to understand is the community, the gaming community is diverse as a bag of Skittles. You reach into the bag and you pull out a multitude of colours. That's the gaming community in a nutshell, if the same for any community. This means that over the last few years, writing on games focused on personal experiences and independent creators, not approval-hungry obsessions on the demands of powerful corporations. It's not about being a reviewer anymore, it's about telling people what to buy, and it's about providing spaces for people to discuss what and whom they support. Which would bring a biased view into your articles, hence Zoe Quinn. Completely ignoring the fact of Gamergate. But you know, just at the start of Gamergate, did Zoe Quinn gain favourable coverage for a game? Or how about the Fine Young Capitalists when they went to the gaming press about what Zoe Quinn had done to them, and they got nothing. They got turned away by the gaming press and said, sorry, if Zoe says it, it must be true. You know, it's not like there's a code of conduct or anything. You know, ugh. This is where it gets really fun. These straw men game journalism ethics conversations people have been having are largely the domain of a prior age, where all we did was negotiate ad deals and review scores and scrape to be called reporters because we had the same powerlessness complex as our audience. And now part of the writer's job in a creative human medium is to help create a creative community and an inclusive culture. And a lack of commitment to do that just looks out of step, like a practical compromise with howling trolls who've latched onto ethics as the latest flag in their onslaught against evolution and inclusion. And yet, now that you have all the power, you've misused it. You know, like Icarus flying too close to the sun, it's about time you were brought crashing down to Earth. As a result, all the gaming blogs have updated their code of ethics and have brought in, new rules that you're not allowed to support people of on Patreon and things like that. And there was never a war to begin with. You look at some of the abuse people sometimes get, and it's mostly people criticising people and their stances. And they ignore and block them, and then call them trolls and, misogynists and whatever. We want to have, conversations, but, reviews aren't the place to do it. If you want to write an op-ed piece about, let's take Caroline Pettit. If Caroline Pettit had gone, okay, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10, but now I'm going to write this other article about what I see as misogynism in this game, people wouldn't have cared. They'd have gone, that's interesting, and there would have probably been a discussion started. They would probably know, yeah, there's a few trolls, there always is. But, it's the internet. You expect that. And whatever happened to the debate of ideas? Because there are many people willing to discuss this issue, but then again, we just keep on shut down again and again, and the conversations almost refuse to happen. However, for the first time in quite a while, we've sort of forced the issue, and as a result, we've got all this changes in the the ethics of some of these companies, which is great. Yes. Developers and writers alike want games about more things, and games by more people. We want and are getting and will keep getting tragi-comedy, vignette, musicals, dream worlds, family tales, abstract art. She basically goes onto a list here. We will get this because we're creating culture now. We are refusing to let anyone freely prohibit from participating. Let's get this on the record now. No one is stopping you from participating. There is not this barrier for entry. Must have this much, testosterone to enter gaming. None of that exists. No one's stopping you from being creative. Gamers want that type of stuff as well. They want games about more things and, new stories and new ideas. But then why haven't you, you've just chosen outrightly to flatly ignore this. Anyway, she continues. Gamer isn't a dated demographic label. Most people increasingly prefer not to use. Gamers are over. That's why they're so mad. We'll see in a few years. And I'll do a video in 2 or 3 years' time. I'll write a special thing on my calendar to do a video in 2 or 3 years' time, addressed to Leigh and Remini about, So, gamers are dead, are they? Because, trust me, gamers aren't going anywhere. Anyway, she continues. These obsolete shit-slingers, these wailing hyper-consumers, these childish internet arguers, they are not my audience. They don't have to be yours. This is a no side to be on. There is no debate to be had. Why is it there's no debate to be had? Because that's a terrible idea. It's more like the fact you don't want to debate and you don't want to debate your ideas is more the task, and more from what, quite frankly, we've read from this article. Anyway, she finishes off with, that's the past, this is what is now. The role you choose to play, and that's what's ahead. And quite frankly, you are ridiculous. I find it absolutely ridiculous you wrote this article. I find it ridiculous that anyone actually put it up on their website. I think Gamasutra should be absolutely appalled for what they put on this website. The long and short of this article is Leigh Alexandra is no different from any person who's created moral panics before. She doesn't like the community. She wants to change it to suit her. What she wants is a grey cultural landscape, not the bag of skittles we have at the moment. And I'm sorry, that's not what we want either. That's not what the majority of people want. Again, you are a few trying to convince the many that we all need to start sitting on spikes. And when we're telling you, hey, sitting on spikes is going to hurt, you are absolutely blankly refusing to acknowledge that fact. But there you go. That was Leigh Remini's, quite frankly, awful article. I know she's written another one since then, which is a massive backtrack apparently, which is going to be absolutely hilarious to read.